What's up, everybody? It is summertime. I hope you're having a good summer so far. We had our most recent drop back in June, and we almost sold out of everything we dropped, which is very encouraging, very cool. Appreciate anybody who bought anything. And so with the next drop coming, I thought I'd talk about some of these pieces and also talk about just a few other things related to rugs and my own journey with them and collecting too. But I think to start, to get a baseline, I'll talk about some books I've gotten recently, because I get people emailing me occasionally who are interested in rugs, interested in learning, and sometimes they ask, what books can I buy to learn about rugs and textiles? And my answer is usually it depends. It kind of depends on what trajectory you're aiming for. If you want to learn more about the history of rugs or the design on rugs, usually if you have a special interest, there are definitely books for that. There are books about every sector of rug interest out there. So it kind of gets a little bit confusing, and there are good books and there are bad books. In my opinion, I think one of the most important things you can look for in a rug book is plates, is the colored plates that come with them. And that's why something like this book is so valuable, is because of the plethora of good plates. And it's funny because I think it's kind of widely agreed on that a lot of the rugs in this book are not very good examples, are not very exemplary, I should say. But the plates are good. The plates are very good. Plates are very important when looking for rug books. Explanations are also important, but they're less important in my opinion than the plates, because everybody's got an opinion. Now, opinions can be valuable because a lot of these books are written by collectors who have collected a certain specific type of rug for a long time, and it's that one type of rug that they've been looking at over and over and over again, and they've probably held, or at least have owned, many examples of those rugs, and through which they do have valuable insights. But you just have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and compare and contrast to other people who have written about the same subject. So that's just a little bit of a disclaimer for rug books. So let's get into the first one. I've actually talked about this book before. This is Caucasian Prayer Rugs by Ralph Kaffel. Excellent reference for this very specific type of rug, Caucasian prayer rugs. Really great plates, once again, and really good explanations of each plate. The Herman book has good plates, for example, but there's very little substance to them. And in this one, Kaffel has kind of written a description about each individual piece. And the valuable thing about Kaffel and his writings in this is that he's going to, as somebody who looked at probably thousands and thousands of prayer rugs, is going to pick up on things that other people might not. And with collecting, for rugs especially, the devil is in the details. And so the insights that he has onto specific pieces is useful and valuable, which is what I think you get a lot of in this book. You get everything from all over the Caucasus, Kazakh, Karabakh, Dagestan and the Northeast Caucasus. It's really good. This is a very, very good book, and it's not that expensive for what it is. I think this was $50. If you can get it for $50 and under, that's awesome. And it's a Holly production. Holly does a great job whenever they help publish these collections. Again, in the presentation, everything is very nice. Yeah, I would recommend this. I would recommend this not only as a reference for Caucasian prayer rugs, but Caucasian rugs in general, if you have an interest in them. Just a really great amount of plates showing a diversity of the types of weavings that come from this area, and all presented excellently. So that's Caucasian Prayer Rugs by Kaffel. Get it for $50. 2-volume set. Another Holly-assisted production is Tibetan Rugs by Molechek, featuring rugs from his collection. Rudy Molechek. This is 2 volumes. I did not know this was 2 volumes when I got it, but wow, what a stellar presentation of these types of rugs. I think this is kind of a seminal work in a lot of ways. Tibetan stuff is interesting because there are different time periods of collections, I think. This is how I kind of visualize it. There's like the 19th century and before stuff. There's like really esoteric nomadic things that are quite rare. And then there's more production stuff. And even the rug featured on the front is not like super old. This is like from the 1920s. And I like that he doesn't necessarily discriminate based on age or even dye usage, because that's something that people get caught up in a lot, I think, is like everything has to be natural. He just sort of presents things how they appeal to his eye, which is, I think, kind of the way to do it. I think things can be beautiful from all different time periods, and trying not to discriminate based on maybe later pieces or things that have certain issues with them. You might say, like, there's an anthropological curiosity presented in most of the pieces in here, but then there's also just the aesthetic qualities that appealed to Molechek, which is cool. I like how there's that spread. The one observation I have is that not every piece has an explanation behind it, or a blurb from Molechek, which is fine. There's a lot in here, and most of them do have something written about them. But some of them are just plates too. Yeah, this is, I mean, you have this one volume that is a bunch of weaving, you know, all the kadens, the tsukdruk, the kangang-ma. So this one is all that, and then this one is just wangdens. This whole volume is just wangdens, which is pretty crazy. $100 for 2 volumes of, you know, what are these, like 300 pages each? Full color, high fidelity photos and details seems pretty fair to me. And it's obviously a great reference. I bought these as a reference for a Tibetan piece I got recently, actually, and it proved to be quite useful. Tibetan Rugs, the Molechek collection, is my other recent pickup in the world of reference material. If you're learning about Caucasian rugs, prayer rugs, Tibetan rugs, that's what I'm reading right now. But why don't we get into some meat and potatoes and talk about some rugs that are coming. Aloha. All right, so I've got a small pile of things here that I'm gonna go over. This isn't everything that's going to be in the new drop. We still have some things coming, but I wanted to sort of get through these, and when the other stuff comes, we'll go over that. And we're going to start with something that actually came yesterday that I was debating whether or not I wanted to actually put in this drop. But here's the thing, because I'm new to the rug world, I'm also very impressionable. And what ends up happening is that my mentors, people that I'm friends with in the rug world, they give me their opinions, and I take those in and I kind of synthesize them into my own opinions. And I think that's how a lot of trades go. You know, people give you advice, and that advice is done in a good faith way, and it just becomes your opinion on something a lot of the times, or how you should do things. And I think when it comes to the business of rugs, that has been very good, very helpful. When it comes to what you find attractive though, I think you can get caught up in these sort of learned biases. So whenever I'm looking at something to potentially put out, I'm always trying to challenge that a little bit and look at things that I don't initially find very attractive and kind of give them a second look, because I know that I'm looking at them through the eyes of someone else a lot of the time. And so I have to truthfully ask myself, at first glance, this might not be something that I would be interested in, but There's something drawing me to it. What is that thing, and why am I attracted to it? Now, I had to get some help with this because when I got it, I thought it was one thing, and actually it was sold as one thing. And I kind of took the person's word for it because I looked at the weave, I looked at sort of the motifs of everything, and I thought the same. And it was sold as a Malayer bag face. And I actually think, with, again, some help, it is actually a Kurdish Mafrash panel. I'm going to just talk briefly about Mafrash. Mafrash are storage bags that would be used to carry different supplies in a nomadic setting. Like when I think of Mafrash, I think of the four sides as being very detailed, sort of like the front of a bag face, and then I think of the top and potentially the bottom as the back of the bag faces, usually lines of color. There are unusual aspects about this. I don't know how common piled Mafrash panels are. You usually see Mafrash panels in the context of Caucasian things, which are almost always sumac or done in a flat woven technique. This one has a central window that is showing an elongated, truncated version of the Hirati pattern. And I just wanted to point out something that I found really nice is the window that this is in, and we're going to get into color in a little bit, but the window, the blue that is being used is this sort of deep aquatic blue. And it's sort of fitting because you see we have 4 of the Hirati fish or the leaves, and then the rest of everything, and it almost looks, and this was not intentional, I'm sure, but it almost looks like you're looking at an aquarium. The type of blue that's being used, and then the rest of these accent colors, and especially the fish, the Hirati fish designs within this sort of aquarium-looking setting are very fitting, which I think is very neat. And then you look at all the rest of the colors. There is something sort of coral reef about them. Lots of greens, lots of pinks. The greens kind of remind me of seaweed. The pink hues are sort of this coral color. I don't know. I mean, obviously that was not the intention, but it's sort of a case of death of the author a little bit. And when you sort of look at this thing and you can kind of see it, you can kind of see like you're looking into almost an aquatic scene or an aquarium, is just kind of like a personal creative twist on the art. You have 3 borders, an interior border with this sort of meandering, I don't know exactly what this is called. I've seen it before. I've actually, ironically, seen it on Malayer rugs, but it's sort of this elongated snowflake or spider with an eye in the center and these curlicues on either end, these spirals. This motif is repeated on the inner border and the outer border, and I just think the hooks that are spiraling out of the main medallion are great. Intricately drawn for something that is done in an asymmetrical knot. It's really fascinating to see how much detail they put into these spirals. But obviously the star of the show here is twofold. 1, it's the condition, and 2, it's the color. The condition is excellent. There are a few areas of repile. There's a few tiny little moth bites, but overall this thing has fat pile, complete ends. It's sort of everything you want in a very decorative piece. But then, I think the color is the star of the show, because this is sort of a situation where it's not like this bombastic display of color. It's sort of more of these harder to achieve colors, these sort of shoulder colors. They're not primaries. They're sort of the in-betweens. And the tones that were reached and the variation in tones that were reached is really quite impressive. There's several different types of coral, all found through especially that main window. There's several different types of green, which is pretty tough to achieve, I think. There's sort of this variated turquoise and slime. Is chartreuse? What is chartreuse? And then there's everybody's favorite, aubergine is kind of pocked around the rug, that sort of deep, dirty purple. I can't talk about color though without talking about bleed around the red. When I first got this, I just immediately thought that the bleed was synthetic. And because I thought it was Malayer, I kind of thought that it was forgivable, because in my head, I don't know if this is true, in my head, I think of Malayer rugs as kind of, sometimes you get synthetic dyes with Malayer rugs and it's sort of par for the course. But then I consulted somebody about it, and one thing that they noticed is that if that was synthetic, we would expect that culprit color to be faded somewhat. And this red is not. The red is still very strong. And yet we see traces of red dye within the knots around the red. And they posited that it probably is a natural red, it's just a mordant issue. And that's because there's no fading of the red, but also because it is interesting, when I first saw this rug, the red did not stick out to me. It still doesn't stick out to me. I can see that it's bled, but it doesn't pop out. It doesn't have that, like I've said, electric quality to it. It fits in very well with the rest of these other dyes. And so I kind of think, and I could be coping, I might be coping, whatever. I kind of agree with the analysis that it is not, in fact, a synthetic dye, but it's just a bad chemical balance of the mordant and the actual dye. You know, it's gonna be disclosed in the listing, but that's my opinion. That's my opinion, okay? This is like 1.5 by 4 feet. It's almost to the point where you could like use it on the floor as like a little runner, or like a table runner would probably be better. But that is the Kurdish, we'll call it, Mafrash panel. Okay, so this is a Northwest Persian. It's probably a long rug, but at this point, there's enough decorative things about it to just call it an area rug. I kind of think long rug is a collector's term, and this is just like kind of my observation. I think if you appeal to collectors, you call something a long rug because that's what it is. And then if you're appealing to more decorative crowds, you have to decide between a runner and an area rug. And I think this one, though, kind of fits into an area rug, like a small area rug size. Like I said, this is a Northwest Persian. As we've said before, if something is Northwest Persian, I'm basically telling you I don't really know what it is. There are elements of it that remind me of Kazakh, like the structural elements, the sides, the portions of the weave. There are certain indicators in the design that make me think Caucasus, but other things that don't, other things that make me think Kurdish. Yeah, see, this is sort of like when I talked about that Goravan runner. It's like, I don't really know how much to say about it, because like when I can talk about something, it's usually very esoteric, right? And this thing is just a good looking rug. But yeah, like I said, there's not really much to say. It's a Northwest Persian, AKA, I don't really know what it is, so we're just talking about how pretty it is. The Northwest Persian rug. I pick this thing up and I feel it, and I feel the give, and it feels very old. It feels 19th century, and it feels, you know, villagey. And so I kind of think Kurdish. The weave and everything kind of feel are very Kurdish coded. And then I asked somebody and they thought it actually might be Shahsavan. And then I saw a listing on eBay recently of a rug that looked very similar to this, listed by somebody who knows rugs, who called their rug Shahsavan. So I'm leaning towards this is actually a Shahsavan piece, or some mix of maybe Kurds borrowing Shahsavan motifs, but I think this is a very pretty thing. And I say that knowing that the color scheme is relatively drab. You know, you've got these purples, and actually this field, you probably can't pick up on it, but this main field color is actually a deep, deep green. These sort of medallions and how far apart they are from each other, and the stars in between each of them. I think there's really nice placement there. If I don't say it, somebody's going to point it out that there's a reason why this looks so drab, and it's because a long, long time ago, probably early 20th century, somebody decided to antique wash this. So it used to be much more colorful, but now it has had all of its original color drained. I don't necessarily think that that makes it, well, it's kind of impossible to say because I don't know what it used to look like. I was about to say I don't know if that made it look any less beautiful. I have a feeling if I had to wager money, I probably would bet that yes, it once used to look very beautiful. But I think what we're left with is still very stunning. The other thing that I really like about it, as you know, I am in my bag years now. I kind of think this looks a little bit like a bag face. You have sort of the central medallion, and within the central medallion, you have this other latch hook medallion and its peripheral things, these little 8-pointed stars all around it. Moving beyond that, you have these sort of spandrel things, and the fact that it is a square size is very bag coated. It kind of looks just like a big bag, which I think is kind of cool. There's obvious condition things, low pile, some rips, some tears, but ultimately I don't really care. I think this thing is super cool and a little bit of a mystery, either Kurdish or Shahsavan, I don't really know. Maybe you do, maybe you have an opinion. I'm sure if you're a rug person you do, so why don't you shout it out? I like the size. I actually don't mind the color. I'm not necessarily a purist that way, so this is just, in my opinion, kind of a cool thing. This, I'm going to do a blanket statement. Again, I'm sure somebody has an opinion. What is this thing? Because I don't really know. I'm just calling it a blanket East Caucasian keyhole rug. So let's talk about the latter half of that description, keyhole. You can see the main design here are these 3 medallions, but they are encased, all together encased. And this is a very popular design used within the Caucasus, this sort of keyhole design. You see it on Kazakh rugs, you see it on tons of Eastern Caucasian rugs. It's all over the place. Everybody kind of uses it. And so the design itself is not particularly compelling by itself on its own, because you can see better versions or more perfect versions of this motif, more exemplary versions of this motif. But the reason I like this is because to me it kind of falls into that folk art category, the folk art version of the more famous version that we know. It does that in 2 ways, in my opinion. The first is the color usage. I think these colors are a lot more playful than, say, something like a Kazakh version of one of these, where they would be bold and in your face. And there are other more refined versions that, you know, maybe come from Shirvan or Baku, those other Eastern Caucasus region, probably where this is from, Dagestan, that are very earthy in their tones, very complementary colors. I wouldn't say this doesn't have complementary colors, but they are a bit more fun, I think, than sort of the strict earthier tones. Especially, there's just like, this rug has like a McDonald's core going on, you know what I mean? There's ketchup and mustard, red and yellow, and then there's blue thrown in. And so it's very playground, very fun, I think. And it's not as like in your face as the Kazakh primaries are, but it's also not super earthy in its tone. It's very mid-level. So there's that, but then there's also the keyhole shape is very truncated. You can see it kind of slammed into that inner minor border at the top and sort of got cut off, where it was supposed to be more of an octagon. The surface at the top should have been a little more elongated. I think this is a fun rug. I think this is a good, I say folk art. You know what though, I'm kind of changing my opinion as I'm talking about it. I think this is a great entry-level piece. You know, it has just enough going on where it's compelling. So to me, that's sort of the colors. And then also just a little detail is the placement of the motifs across the field. They've been done in a way where they're cut off at certain points, where there's almost this 3-dimensional effect happening, where the keyhole is out front, and then all of the motifs are in the back. So there's that compelling aspect to it. It has borders that I typically don't like. You see this sort of, I can't remember what this main border is called, but I really don't like this usually, and it's usually because of the colors used. You see them a lot on Shirvan prayer rugs, Dagestan prayer rugs, and they're always so depressing in their colors. The yellows are like a deep mustard. The reds are this kind of nasty brick color. I really don't like them usually on those rugs. And on this one, it's a little more palatable. Like I said, it's a little more fun. This border I usually see on Perpendil rugs. I usually see it drained of color. And this one has enough variation going on where it kind of keeps you visually interested. There's enough mistakes too that are fun to catch, like in that corner down there. There's kind of like some funky stuff going on. It just has some things that normally I wouldn't really care for, but on this piece, I found them kind of cute, I guess, cutesy. Like I said, a good entry-level Caucasian rug. Specific motifs will always have a place in my heart. When I was first getting into rugs, one of the first rugs that I really wanted to buy that I just couldn't afford was I think it was like 5 by 8. It was a pretty big Kuba rug. And it was early 20th century, all the color. It might have even been antique washed, but it was very beautiful. And it used a particular design that I will always have an affinity for called the Lezgi star. And that's why I bring up that story, because we're talking about a rug with that very design. Now the Lezgi star is sort of this fractured and jagged 8-pointed star that is seen on a bunch of different Caucasian rugs. It's called the Lezgi star because it takes its name from the eponymous region of Lezgistan in the northern Caucasus, but the motif is not just found there. You can see it on Kazakh rugs, you can see it on Shirvan rugs. You know, it's a borrowed motif. It's a very popular motif. And that rug that I was enamored with, we actually were able to buy it. And then we ended up selling it because I had gotten my enjoyment out of it. But the Lezgi star will forever be locked in my brain. And I will always stop and look at a Lezgi star, always. I love the motif. And this is a Kuba rug that is using the Lezgi star. But to me, this is an exemplary version. This is the sort of Lezgi star Kuba that other Kubas that are using this motif should aspire to look like. Now, it's not in perfect condition, but it hits every point that I want to see on one of these, which is what I'm gonna go over now. The first one being the drawing and the scale of the stars. There's 4 of them and they go from top to bottom. Oftentimes, when rugs use this one main motif, not just Lezgi stars, but many stars, oftentimes one will be truncated at the top. So you'll get a half Lezgi, for example, at the top. And on this one, perfect scale, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not all the exact same size, but they had the foresight to at least be able to fit a solid number, no halvesies. 2, color on this thing is incredible, and especially the green. And where there are good greens, there are good yellows, and vice versa. And when there are good greens and good yellows, for me, that's what I love. I love a good green and I love a good yellow, and they're both here. And one is the background of 2 of the stars, which is just fantastic. Third thing, borders. Many Kuba rugs will use this border. This is a variation on one of the oldest design motifs that we have, the running dog, thought to come from Greek design. But as you can see, it's much different than something we would expect on a piece of Grecian pottery. And this version of it, I always kind of thought it looked like an eagle's head. The more I see it though, it kind of has that Hosukai's wave off of Kanagawa look to it. And then all of the auxiliary space between each one on this piece has all the right motifs. It has the little limirocos. At the bottom, it has these really fantastic pinstripe bota here, and then some of them, maybe all of them, have these sort of latch hooks coming off of them. Great borders. I don't want to say it's the perfect, but this is the version of this border that you want if your rug is going to have this border. And then number 4 is the field. So many of these Kuba rugs will have this dark brown field, and more often than not, that dark brown oxidizes faster than the rest of the rug because of the chemical imbalance that the dyer gave to it. What that does though is gives the rug this serendipitous art wherein the colored portions, the colored motifs, are raised off of the field. And this one is not as dramatic as others you'll see, but if you run your hand across the field, you can feel the height of the motifs because the rest of the field, that wool has deteriorated and lowered. And it's just a very cool phenomenon that happens on a lot of these rugs, this one included, that I dig it. I love when that happens, and I specifically, it's whatever. If one of these was in perfect condition, that would be awesome too, but I think so many of them have that going on that it's expected, and so when you see a good version of it, that's awesome. Like I said, there's wear to the rug. We tried to repair it as much as we could, or to the best of our ability, but this is what I would consider to be an exemplary Lezgi Kuba, and probably my favorite rug in this next drop. Hey, was this filmed last minute or what? So there is an antique show about a week away, and I'm trying to converge a drop with that antique show. And there are going to be a number of things, the things that I've talked about, some of them are going to be available at the antique show, some stuff that I haven't talked about, some stuff that I won't talk about, and then there are things that I'm going to talk about that aren't going to be at the show. So I'm still figuring all that out, but there's one more thing I want to talk about that is too big for an in the bag, and I'm worried that if it sells, it might sell at that antique show and I won't have spoken about it, and I really want to speak about it. There's obviously not enough room to pull this thing out, but here's a picture of it. It is a Transcaucasian Kurdish long rug. And we've spoken before about Transcaucasian rugs. That's another term that is used, sort of like Northwest Persian, to indicate that you don't really know where it's from, but that the structural elements, the design elements are borrowing from several different areas, mostly within the borderlands of the Caucasus, Northwest Persia, and Eastern Anatolia. So when we look at the field of this thing, there is a design that may be familiar if you're aware of Caucasian rugs. It seems to be imitating a Shulaver Kazakh. And here's just a little aside, and something I didn't really even realize until I did a little bit of digging, and even now I'm still not sure. The naming conventions of the Caucasian rugs are so irritating sometimes. Sometimes you'll see rugs that are called Shulaver Kazakhs, and you can't fault them for that. I call them Shulaver Kazakhs. Lots of other people call them Shulaver Kazakhs. I mean, there might be a version of that rug that is made towards the Kazakh region of the Caucasus, but those rugs, for the most part, are, I think, South Caucasian. Because if you look at the weave for those rugs, they don't really read as a Kazakh proper. They read South Caucasian, but then for some reason they're called Kazakhs. If somebody knows why that is, please comment below, because I couldn't figure it out, and I did try. This rug is using a Shulaver Kazakh design, which is this latch hook repeating medallion up the field. Here's a joke about long rugs. I was recently visiting another dealer and I saw something in a pile on the floor, kind of rolled up, so you couldn't really tell the size, and I was like, ooh, what's that? And he said, some Caucasian rug, and I said, what's the size? And he said, the wrong one. And that is evocative of all long rugs. They look awesome, they're the wrong size. Including this one. This is about 3.5 feet wide by 9 feet. So if you want to get into the decorator terms again, you can call it a wide runner, but it's a long rug. And so it's using that repeating Shulaver Kazakh motif up the field. And I recently saw somebody else post on Reddit that they had a Shulaver Kazakh long rug. And they were just asking generally, you know, how old is this rug? And I was kind of looking at the picture of it. That's sort of what kicked off this thing about where do these rugs come from? Because they don't look like something that you'd normally see in the Kazakh family of rugs. And then looking for rugs like that, I came across, you know, there's like Nazmial has a crazy nice one. I think probably Claremont Rug Company also has a very nice one. And it seems to be the case that what makes for a good example of a Shulaver is when they manage to get all of those latch hook medallions, however many they're planning on using, to all fit within the window of the field and have good scale to them. There's like a precision that I think is looked for in a good example of a Shulaver Kazakh. This differs in several ways. The first one is the weave. This is kind of clearly a Kurdish thing, and so you could say Kurdish Transcaucasian long rug that is using that Shulaver Kazakh motif. But because it's Kurdish, there's a little more leeway, I think, in the way that the field design is drawn, because it's clearly, you know, Kurdish weavers are everywhere in this region and they copy a lot of designs. So it's not surprising that a design that is mostly seen in the southern Caucasus region would be copied by Kurds. And it's really cool to see the Kurdish representation of a design that is so much associated with rigidity a little bit, you know, because they need, again, the good examples, they fit and scale well onto a field. I think they actually do fit all of the medallions onto the field, but the way that it's done is so wonky. Like the peripheral latch hooks that are in the empty space between the main medallions are kind of like all over the place. There are a lot of little Kurdish flourishes. There's little bota in the border. One thing I think is really cool is there's this sort of chevron border on the side, and something I don't know if you see very often is the chevron border is kind of common, but to see the bird's foot, I think you call it a bird's foot, nested within that chevron, I don't know if that's something that you see super often. So that's just a very cool little thing. This is a particularly, the outer border, this sort of interlocking S shape, is one of my favorite borders. I love seeing that. And then there's a simplified version of that border within the inner minor border. I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything about the color. The color is fantastic, and the interesting thing about the color is that there is a wide, I think maybe every color is represented on this rug, but the way it's done is the base color for this rug is quite dark. The field is a deep brown. Even the warps and wefts are dark, but the way that's reflected in the colors on the field is that they become not as garish, they're more pastel-y. Despite every cousin from the color family showing up, you know, they're all still family. And that's really cool to see. I think a lot of times you would get at least a couple colors that would clash, but here not so much. This is a really cool long rug. I don't think I have anything more left to say. Oh, sign up to the Patreon because they got this video early. There you go. Drops coming soon.